When we think about success, we often think about great, big, enormous, earth-shattering changes that we have to make. But the reality is that success is really just a combination of small, consistent goals over time. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, the power of the compound effect. Hey, this is Dr. Dwain Woode. Welcome back to my 100-day walk to consistency. I'm glad that you're joining me as we build a better, stronger, more consistent, more resilient version of ourselves. In this conversation that we're going to have today, we're setting ourselves up once again for success. Remember, consistency is key, and the compound effect is amazing because we get to break our tasks up into smaller areas, smaller chunks that sets us up for great success in our health and in all the things we want to do. I'm glad that you're here. Welcome back to day number 14 of my 100-day walk to consistency. I'll see you on the trail as we continue this walk. All right, let's go. So today we're talking about the compound effect. And what really is the compound effect? It is the idea that small actions accumulate over time and result in big changes, big, enormous results. It's kind of like interest, that you take some money and you put it aside, and over time, the small incremental sums that you put together add up to make a larger sum. It's the same idea with the compound effect, that the behaviors that we do today set us up to have larger changes over time. And it seems like a simple, inconsequential, really, idea, but it is so powerful. It's perhaps one of the most powerful concepts that I think we're going to learn. And in fact, when I talk to the trainees, we have residents, we have students, we have high school students, medical students who walk through the office, or even when I'm talking to my clients and patients, it is the one thing that sometimes seems to elude them because it seems so simple. It sounds so basic that if I do something consistently over time, that I'm going to get benefit. One of the things that I think will cause difficulty for a lot of people is that the effects are not seen as quickly and readily as we want. And so you remember we talked about patience, right? Making sure that we're developing patience. And so sometimes the compound effect helps us in developing the patience, because we've got to be patient if we are going to see the results that we want, okay? So compound effect, it is just the accumulation of those small things that we do on a daily basis that sets us up for success. So some keys that I want you to get from this idea of the compound effect. And one of the very first keys is that small actions can accumulate. Small actions can accumulate. Let's take an example. Let's say you want to lose weight. Well, you're not going to lose weight all at one time. The weight's going to come off gradually. And you can get up today and say, okay, today I want to lose 50 pounds. And get on that scale in the morning, and you can do a bunch of stuff for that day and get on the scale in the evening. Guess what? It hasn't changed. It may have gone down a pound or two, but it really hasn't changed. But if you are consistent day after day, like we're doing here, we're walking, right? We're walking 100 days. So day after day, you get up and you go out and you watch the calories. You get up, you go out and you watch the carbs. You get up and you go out and you are doing the things that are required to change that scale, that number on the scale. After a while, guess what? Those numbers begin to add up and you start to see drops in the weight. So that is the power of the compound effect. Those things are accumulatable, right? So they accumulate. The things that you do on a daily, regular basis accumulate until you see the result. The next key that I want you to pay attention to is that consistency. And we've said that. You hear me say that each time as we start the video. Consistency is key. It is so easy to try and want to do big things one time. We want to make massive changes, massive adjustments. And we think that because we've made those massive adjustments, that is what is the best thing. It's kind of like when we're saving, right? You could decide that you're going to save $10,000 and you go and you take those $10,000 and in one swoop, you drop that into your bank account. But it is actually the consistent changes, the consistent savings that you do on a regular basis that result in the big savings that you will eventually have. Okay, so consistency. One is accumulatable. Consistency is key, right? So I'm talking about these small compound effects, and the results are exponential. That's a key one, right? So it's not just 1 + 1 = 2, but when we add it, we're also getting the results of not just the initial thing we put in, but the accumulation of both. It's kind of like when you're saving money. The money that you put in gets interest, right? And the interest gets interest. And the interest on the interest gets interest. And that's the beauty of it. So the more you put in, the more you get. And it's not just cumulative, it is exponential. And we'll talk a little bit more about that exponential idea further in other discussions. But I want you to know that it is the key. So it is not the result that you see from a massive one-time change. It's not about big changes one time, but it's about little changes over time, little consistent changes that are accumulating and that give you the results that you want. Okay, so consistency, very important, and this idea of the compound effect. Make sure that you are paying attention to all of those. So why do small changes make such a big impact? Let me change this just a little bit. So why do small changes make such a big impact? Well, number one, they are more manageable. So let's go back to our idea of wanting to lose weight. Well, you could get up and say, okay, I've got to lose 100 pounds, 50 pounds, whatever the number of pounds. And that can be overwhelming because trying to lose 100 pounds, just the concept, just the idea of having to do that can be overwhelming. But saying that I am going to lose a half a pound a week, I'm going to lose 1 pound a week, that now, even as you've been thinking about that when I said that, that gives you a sense of calm because I can do that. That's doable. That's manageable. It's a bite-sized chunk. Notice that word. We'll talk about chunking in future talks. It gives us bite-sized pieces that we can then use to track our progress, to move in the direction that we want to go. You can even think about if you're out there and you want to write a book, right? And you're thinking, oh my God, I have this book I've got to write. That's one way of thinking about it. Or you could think, well, I'm going to write, I don't know, a chapter a month. Or I'm going to write, a page a day, whatever the chunk is. Over time, when you put all those different pages, those paragraphs that you've learned or that you've written, then all of a sudden you have a book, okay? So it is more manageable when we are working with small actions. And they build momentum. I can't tell you the number of times that I've looked at a project, I've looked at something that I wanted to do, and when I look at the whole thing, it looks overwhelming. And there's the inertia, right? That, okay, I got to get started. But when I do small things, when I make small changes, when I am able to get a win, I lose a pound, I lose half a pound, my blood sugars are a couple of points better, I'm able to make it through a week and then 2 weeks now of walking, then it builds momentum. And the momentum pushes me in the direction of success. I get that dopamine burst. I get that, yeah, I'm gonna do this, right? Because I wanna keep that momentum going. That's the beauty of tracking also, right? We talked about that before, that it allows you to see where you've been, allows you to see where you're heading, and allows you to celebrate when you are able to make those changes, okay? And then they are sustainable, right? Small changes are sustainable. Sometimes we say, okay, I'm not gonna eat carbs, right? For some of my diabetics or people who are trying to be on a ketogenic diet, I'm not gonna eat carbs. Now, I'll tell you, that's an admirable thing, but is it sustainable? Probably not. I'm going to get up every day and I'm going to spend 2 hours in the gym. Is it doable? Yeah. Is it sustainable? For some people, but for most of us, no. I'm not gonna ever eat ice cream again, right? So those are big things, but are they sustainable? So we want to do things that are sustainable, okay? So when we're working with the compound effect, the small actions that we do are usually sustainable. They're things that we can continue doing over time. And remember, it's not about the big, massive things that we do once, but it's about the small, consistent things that we do on a daily basis. So an example of that, of course, like I said, is losing weight. When we're trying to lose weight, that is something that sometimes people will struggle with because they want massive changes in one time. But I want to convince you that doing small actions over time is the way to go, because those things are sustainable. And then how do we harness the power of the compound effect? We harness the power of the compound effect, one, by starting small and staying consistent. Start small and stay consistent. But going back to our example of weight or the changes that we make in our lives to be able to accomplish better weight, better blood sugars, better high blood pressure, better cholesterol, reversing diabetes. So this process that we're on, this 100-day walk to consistency, it is a process. And so the reason for every day getting up is that we're starting small. We are doing small things. We're making small changes in our habits, in our behavior. I saw something recently that when we make big changes that are not sustainable, then we're actually tricking and lying to ourselves, and our bodies, our minds now have to find a reason to rationalize why that thing didn't work, right? So remember, our brain does not like to be wrong. And so if you're choosing something that is not doable, it is not achievable, it is not, remember SMART goals? And you are planning to do that thing, and then you decide, okay, this is not working, I'm going to drop out, I'm not going to do it anymore, then the brain notes that. And so the next time you want to do something, it will remind you that, hey, you remember that last time when you tried to do that thing? You remember that last time that when you were in that program? You remember that last time when you did whatever you did? Yeah, you didn't do it, so this must be who you are. And that is not the case, okay? So we want to make sure that we are setting ourselves up for success. We want to start small start small, and we want to stay consistent. I'm just walking under a tree here. That's why I got a little dark. Okay. Number 2, we want to trust the process. I want to trust the process. I was in a group let's see, I think that started maybe 2 years ago, or 2 or 3 years ago. So I was in this group, and the group had an outline of how things were supposed to go. And I started the process, and then I decided, I said, you know what? This won't work for me. And I started doing something else. And I actually eventually left the group, yeah, because I wasn't getting the success that I wanted. I eventually rejoined the group, y'all. And when I rejoined the group, I decided that I was going to follow the process. And when I followed the process, even though I thought the process was not going to work for me, I began having success. So a big part of what has to happen is that we've got to trust the process. We've got to buy into, okay, this process is going to work for me, is going to give me the results that I want. So whatever your thing is, whatever it is, so we're doing 100-day walk for consistency. Whatever your thing is, you're saving money, you're working on a relationship, you're losing weight, you're reversing your diabetes, you want a new job, you're interested in buying a new house, developing a new skill, getting a new degree. Consistency and small actions over time are very important, and you've got to trust the process. Then you got to track your progress, right? We've talked about that at length, right? You have to track your progress. Anything that you want to change, anything that you want to improve, you have to make sure that you are tracking it, that you are, so that you know where you are, you know you can keep yourself accountable, and that you know when you can celebrate, when you've made those wins, when you had those places where, oh yeah, this is it right here, right? So you got to track the progress. And then you want to make sure that you are patient. Right? We've already done a section here on patience and how that plays into what we do in terms of our success. You got to be patient. It's not going to happen over time. Let me say it again. It's not going to happen over time. How many times was that? One more time. It's not going to it's not going to happen immediately. Let me say it. It is going to happen over time. It's not going to happen immediately. It's not going to happen immediately. But it takes time. And you've got to be patient, because if you aren't patient, then this is where a lot of people will drop out. It's not that the process doesn't work, but they think the process is taking much longer than it should, and than they anticipate, right? So make sure that you are not short-circuiting yourself because you're not patient. Let's see. So I'm gonna take a breather here for just a minute, because I'm talking while I'm walking, and of course that that causes some issues for me. Whew. Yeah, how long have we been walking, by the way? Okay. So, talking more about the compound effect. There's actually a book called The Compound Effect, and I'm not going to go into the details of what's there. It is one that I've used, one that actually my wife uses in her coaching program, and it's a beautiful concept, and it's one that I use for lots of my clients, one that I use for patients when I'm talking to them about the benefits of what they're doing. It takes time, and small things add up. So how does the compound effect really work over time? And there are 3 different phases: the early phase, the middle phase, and then the breakthrough phase. And the early phase can actually be invisible. Oh yeah. Invisible. So that means that when you put that first $100 in the account and you're saving money, and you go back, they're still only $100. And when you put the $200, this next $100 in, and you go back, they're still only $200. And when you go back and you put another $100 and you check the account, there's still only $300. But at some point, those $100 bills add up and they begin generating interest. And at first, the interest that they generate is small. But if you keep putting in the daily or weekly or monthly or yearly, whatever the amount is, then the interest begins building, and then the interest starts.
Time, 27 minutes, 35 seconds. Total distance, 1.0 miles. Average pace, 27 minutes, 34 seconds per mile. Split pace, 27 minutes, 34 seconds per mile.
And so you heard my app there telling me what I've done so far. So we've gone about a mile since we've been talking. Not just in about, we've gone a mile since we've been talking. All right. So this initial phase, which is the invisible stage, for a lot of people, is where a lot of people drop out because they don't see the benefits. They don't see the results. They don't see that they're making changes. They're getting momentum. But over time, yeah, it starts to build. It starts to build, and you start to see those results. And then phase 2 is the slow growth. So as you keep at it, as you keep doing those things, like I said, you keep putting that $100 in, and you start to see some small growth. That's where you start to see the interest. Small interest, not a whole lot. It's not like all of a sudden you have an extra $100 in there. You have a fraction of a dollar sometimes. But you begin to see small changes. You begin to see that weight is changing. Those blood sugars are a little better, right? The blood pressure is a little better, and the doctor starts to talk to you about, hey, maybe we need to start adjusting medication. Maybe you start to see some improvement in that relationship that has been in your mind, the relationship that is over, that's done. You start to see some changes, and that is the slow growth phase, because things are moving in the direction that you want. And then the final phase is the breakthrough phase. So phase number 3, this is the exponential phase. This is when you've saved and the interest has gotten interest, and you start to see now even the interest that you have in the account is producing $100. So you're still putting $100 in, but the interest is producing $100. And then the interest starts producing $1,000. And then it starts producing, right? And you go on and on and on for all of those things. And this is where breakthrough comes. And a lot of us, we'll fight through. We'll go through the initial phase, that invisible phase, and we'll make it through the early growth phase. Got a truck going by. So we'll make it through that. But we give up just when the breakthrough phase is about to happen. And we've put all this time in, and we give up before the breakthrough phase happens. And then we've got to start over. So one of the things that we talk about when we talk to people about recovery is often when we talk about recovery and we talk about addiction, okay? So the point of addiction, or the point of temptation, point of getting to the point where you are thinking about relapsing or thinking about getting off your plan, it is not that I'm thinking that I've got to not relapse forever. Let me say that again. A lot of people think that the goal is to think, hey, I've got to stay sober forever. And if you think that at the point where you're being tempted, you're gonna fail. So the point of that moment is to say, I could do this tomorrow. I could drink tomorrow. I could take that drug tomorrow. I can eat tomorrow, but I don't have to do it at this moment. So I'm not worried about the next moment or tomorrow or the next month or the rest of my life. What I'm worried about is this moment right here. And so there are going to be times when you're thinking, oh, this is not eventually going to work. But don't worry about eventually. Just worry about this moment, this time right here. Today I'm getting up. Today I'm walking. I may not be able to walk 3 miles, but I can walk a mile. I may not be able to run around the block, but I can walk around the block. I may not be able to lift whatever pounds you're trying to lift, but I can lift 5 pounds, right? So don't give up before your breakthrough. A lot of people, like I said, make it through those first 2 phases, and then they give up just as the breakthrough, y'all. They give up just as that breakthrough is about to happen. Got a motorcycle heading down the hall there, okay? So make sure that you don't do that because it is so worth it. Your health is of great benefit. Your health is of great benefit. All right, so your challenge for today. 1, write down 1 small daily action you can commit that aligns with your long-term goals. 1 daily action that you can commit to that aligns with your long-term goals. For me, right, one of those daily actions, of course, is this 100-day of walking, but the other action that I could take is getting to bed. Yeah. Getting to bed consistently so that I can get up and do even these videos in the morning. I can get up and I can go through my mantra. I can get up and I can do all those things because notice the compound effect, it works here, but it also works in so many other places. When I can master it here, I can master it elsewhere. So what is one thing that you're gonna do, that you're gonna commit to on a daily basis that will take you in the direction that you wanna go? Okay, so you wanna write that down. Then you wanna commit to doing it every day for the next week. Every day for the next week. Now, we're walking, right? So that's a commitment. But what other thing can you do? What other thing in other areas of your life, whatever area you're working on, can you do to be successful? I want you to write it down, and I want you to commit to doing that for the next week. And I want you to track your progress, even if the results don't seem like they're coming at first. Track your progress, because one of the best ways of knowing where we're heading to adjust is to make sure that we are tracking our progress. Now I'm walking through the parking lot here. Got some folks who are saying hello, hey, as we move through this space. All right, so the compound effect is one of the most powerful tools that we will learn. It's one of the most powerful concepts that you can learn here in this space and that you can use and learn for the rest of your life. By embracing this idea of the compound effect and all the things that we just talked about, you set yourself up for success. Remember, small things that you do, small actions, small behaviors will result in massive changes. So make sure you're doing those challenges. Make sure you're working on the workbook. And that is the compound effect as a tool for helping you be consistent and helping you be successful. So now that we've talked about today's topic, I want to also challenge you to not just let these concepts, these topics, these discussions we're having be something that you listen to theoretically. I want you to make sure that you are joining in on the challenges, that you're spending time going through the workbook, because as you do the workbook, remember, you're creating a manual, a blueprint, if you will, for your success. It is an amazing thing to be able to look back and see where we've been and to also look and see where we are heading. So make sure that you're spending the time you're doing these on a daily basis with us as we go through the discussions. Remember, the journey is about progress, not perfection. So there are going to be times when you don't quite hit the mark, when you don't quite hit that benchmark, but you want to make sure that you are consistent over time. As always, this is Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Woode with an E. The E stands for Endocrinology. Here on the channel, I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life, avoid complications, and go to the next level. And we are walking to consistency. Thank you for joining me. We'll see you tomorrow on our walk as we continue developing a better version, a stronger version, a more consistent version of ourselves.